we like to say we never write a check unless we think we can be helpful, and we like to back it up with really adding value.
Hello, I'm John Generone, Editor-in-Chief of IPO Edge. Very happy to be here at the 2025 IPO Summit at the New York Stock Exchange. I'm even happier to have with me Neil Keegan, who is the CEO of Marlinspike. Neil, thanks for joining me.
Great, thanks for having me, John.
So I can't help but mention, I met Neil at Mar-a-Lago in my hometown of Palm Beach. He was giving a presentation to some existing and potentially new investors. We wrote an article about it, which you can see at the bottom of this article. Neil, before we talk about Marlinspike, can we talk big picture? Talk about China as our #1 adversary and what that means for the world.
Sure, thank you. I think it's very important that we recognize that China is our #1 adversary, and it's actually quite gratifying that the new administration has that as our #1 strategic priority for national security. So this has been percolating for some time. China has a 100-year plan, and we seem to have a 4-year plan every 4 years at best. They are quickly accelerating and advancing. They've gone from a peer in many cases to ahead of us in many areas. So it's it's distressing, it's disturbing, and we need to do something about it. The good news is that we are. The private sector has stepped in, and the public sector recognizes this as well. We need a lot more innovation and a recognition that this is our focus and needs to be our focus.
So great segue there, Neil. Let's talk about innovation. The incumbents, the big guys, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, surely they're doing some innovation, but you need these smaller companies that are maybe more nimble?
I would agree with that. And at Marlinspike, we're really a multi-stage venture capital firm where we like to back really bright, strong young men and women that are leaving the Palantirs and the Andurils and the SpaceXs and the Teslas of the world. But we also like to invest in later stage companies. So as I mentioned, Palantir, it's a good segue to your question. If you're tracking them, they're trading at about $117, almost a $260 billion market cap, which now is bigger than many of these primes like Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman combined. And this is a company that started about 20 years ago after 9/11, and in response to those attacks to aggregate all that information and make sense of it. And so now they're just a juggernaut, and I think really highlight what these types of companies can become and how disruptive they are. And the bigger legacy companies, not that they're bad companies, they build exquisite satellites and aircraft carriers and bombers. It's just that they're so big, I think they've forgotten how to move fast, move nimble, and really innovate, which is really what we need to do.
Great. Now, tell our viewers about dual-use companies. What's that all about?
Sure. So dual use is a phrase. I didn't invent it. I wish I did. But it's actually been around for quite some time. If you go back really to the 1930s and you think about radar, and then you roll back, you go back even further, where all these innovations that we have today that are ubiquitous typically came from military or intelligence innovations. So you can think about the whole space race, GPS, the internet, touchscreen phones, stealth technology. All of these things really started with the military need, but now they have crossed over into commercial use, and in many cases they're very ubiquitous. So when we invest in companies, we like to see them not only solving problems and challenges for national security, the Department of Defense, and the intelligence community, but also have the ability to take their products and services and technology and scale that into the commercial side, which we believe gives a great opportunity for an enhanced investment return.
Great. Now, what about secondary markets? Can we dig into that a little bit?
Sure. Secondary markets, completely fascinating. It's an area that's continually growing, day by day. This is a market that we're actually, very familiar with. Going back to Palantir, one of the first investments that we made as a firm back in 2020 was in Palantir before they did their direct public offering. It was actually 7 different transactions in the secondary market from diverse sellers, either employees, former employees, long holders that had been long the stock for many years that needed liquidity. So there was a very vibrant opportunity to get in there. That's also something that we use as part of our toolkit at Marlinspike for our funds. If we have a position that's done quite well, we hit return targets and we want to return some liquidity, which is not something that's happened a lot in venture capital over the last few years, we can sell assets in the secondary market, return liquidity or DPI to our LPs, limited partners, and then let the rest of the stock run until an exit.
Great. Speaking of exit, excellent segue again there, Neil. Let's talk about IPOs. In fact, we just had a defense company here start trading just about an hour ago. Palantir, you talked about. Are there potential IPOs in your portfolio other than those guys?
Sure. So as I mentioned, we go early and late. So most of the earlier stage companies are going to take some time.
Yeah.
Most companies take 10 to 12 years to actually get to the point where they can IPO.
Yeah.
In some cases, you have a SpaceX that's over 20 years in the making, Palantir 20 years in the making. Some are deciding to stay private longer, like SpaceX. Some are deciding to go public, like Palantir. One of our portfolio companies is Anduril. We're incredibly bullish on Anduril. You probably saw the news on Friday that they Founders Fund is leading a very large round,
Yeah.
$2 to $2.5 billion at a $28 billion pre-money valuation, about $30.5 billion post. We're hopeful that at some point they'll decide to go public. We think they would be a terrific public company, and we think that if there's the ability for other investors to get access to it, I think that'd be a great thing, not only for Anduril and the shareholders, but the broader defense tech market.
What do you look for in a founder? Surely that's very important. When you're looking at a company, it's not just the business model, it's the person behind it. Tell me about your philosophy around that.
So that's a great point. We don't just look at the founder, it's really the founding team and the team around it. So we say there's three things. There's the team, there's the tech, and there's a total addressable market. So team is first for a reason, because especially on the earlier stage, you've got to have a bold, visionary, aggressive, thoughtful founder, because they're all in and you're banking on them to go all in and to do what it takes, round the clock, work hard, hustle, iterate, go fast, break things, fail, but keep going. That is a very, very crucial component to backing a founder and their team. And it really starts with the top, so it then permeates through the rest of the culture of the organization.
Great. I want to talk about your team. I was really impressed when I met you a couple weeks ago at Mar-a-Lago. A lot of your colleagues, not only veterans, but have worked in Washington. Tell us a bit about some of your colleagues.
Sure. Thank you for that. And I love talking about my team. I often say we're the best team on the street. We're a specialist team and a specialist firm, and built so by design. I'm very blessed to have, one of my partners is a gentleman named Mislav Tulusic. He's actually Croatian originally. He's a proud American citizen now. We call him our Croatian sensation. He's our chief investment officer. And what I saw in Mislav in terms of having a partner is he's got very deep expertise in aerospace and engineering and investing in this space. He's been doing it for over 15 years. He's practically a dinosaur in this space. He's very thoughtful when it comes to strategy and thinking about where the puck is going, and he helps us position ourselves in the right lanes with the right companies at the right time. So blessed to have him. Secondly, Chip Walter. Chip is another Naval Academy grad like me. I like to give him a hard time because he's a little bit older than me, but he's a lot wiser than me. 28 years in the Navy. He had command, major command. He was a pilot, flew the P-3, which is a submarine hunter. So he used to track down Russian submarines. He spent a fair amount of time with General Petraeus. And when General Petraeus was tapped to run CIA, Chip came over with him and ran legislative affairs for about 2 years with him. As he likes to say, no good phone calls on Capitol Hill. Then he had an interesting transition, which is very relevant to Marlinspike and what we do. He stayed on at the agency for about 5.5 years, running the Innovation Center, which is the interface with InQtel, which is the investment arm of the intelligence community. So his whole job was to match technology with the needs of the agents in the field. He took that same mindset to Northrop Grumman, where he was running venture capital for Northrop Grumman, and we were lucky to have Chip come aboard when we launched our first fund. So he's a key asset in terms of understanding the landscape, understanding the Department of Defense, understanding where the puck is going in terms of where the dollars are flowing, and frankly, where the needs of the warfighter are going, so that we use that lens not only in our upfront due diligence, but then how we add value to our companies to help them progress down these different channels. Because you can't just go to the Pentagon and knock on the door and say, hi, I'm here, I want to work with you. So someone like Chip is invaluable. And then we've got two other great team members. Tim Busby is our CFO. He was a former public company CFO and CEO. And then we call him our young Army captain, Nick Snowd, West Point graduate, 5 years active duty in the Army, was working embedded with Carlyle Private Equity. We brought him over to the firm, and he's also the tip of the spear when it comes to our due diligence and our pipeline for underwriting new opportunities.
Well, like I said, very impressive team, and that leads me to the next question. You bring a lot more to the table than just money when you make an investment.
Correct.
With all of those teammates of yours, you can really help these companies grow, figure out how to get contracts too, right?
Sure, absolutely. So one quick story on that. Armada is one of our core companies in our first fund. This is founded by Dan Wright and John Runyon. They're out in the Bay Area. What they do is this is a data system that can work remotely out at the edge. So if you think about the cloud computing and how big that is, we believe that the next edge, IPO edge, is going to be data out at the edge. So think about dams in Brazil, offshore oil rigs, or even the US Navy, for example, needing all of that compute power and latency speed to operate out and say in the Pacific Theater, where a potential conflict is going to be governed by AI, speed, autonomous systems in the air, surface of the water, and undersurface. And so Armada is a good example where we help them think through how to access not only the intelligence community, but the broader Navy. And we're honored to be cap table partners with them and helping them think through how to operate in our lane. And we do that over and over with our companies. And we like to say we never write a check unless we think we can be helpful, and we like to back it up with really adding value.
I like that philosophy. All right, last topic here. Tell us about the origin of Marlinspike. And by the way, tell our viewers what a Marlinspike is.
Sure. So it's my quick background. Naval Academy grad, 6 years active duty. Was actually here almost 20 years ago when I started at Goldman Sachs. So it's really great to be back. Thank you for inviting me. Ran a family office and then launched Marlinspike 5 years ago. The term Marlinspike is actually a tool that mariners have used for literally hundreds of years. It's I should have brought one. I might not have been able to get through security though. It's
No.
a knife with a metal fid, and you can use it to untangle knots that are tangled on deck, or you can splice lines together to make them stronger.
Okay.
And then back at the Naval Academy, someone would offer a tip of the hat if they thought you were a particularly skilled mariner. They would say, that young man or woman, he's a Marlinspike. So I like the term, and we came up with the idea, and it's a little bit of a tip of the hat to the Navy, but it's also I think demonstrates that for us, being a specialist firm focused on aerospace and defense and dual use, we're not afraid of a thorny or tangled situation. When we invest, we make our company stronger, and we like to think we know what we're doing in our defined realm of expertise.
All right, I love it. Neil, this has been terrific. What a treat to have Neil
Thank
Keegan,
you so much.
who's the CEO of Marlinspike. I'm John Janarone, Editor-in-Chief of IPO Edge, signing off from the New York Stock Exchange.